Okay, I know what you're thinking. It's way too early for Christmas, but tell that to my paintbrush because it's already dashing through the snow. If you're the kind of person who swears you'll start your Christmas cards early every year and then ends up panic painting on December 22nd, this one's for you. Let's get festive before the chaos begins. All right, I'm just pulling out some supplies to use with today's painting. I've got some watercolor paints and a paper towel, some clean water, and then of course some watercolor paper. Now, I have a quick, simple outline sketch on my page. It's really nothing too super complicated. First, I just have a normal outline shape of a traditional pine tree, but then I've added a fun element to the piece, and I have another pine tree sketch that's more whimsical looking with just some lines. This one is not going to be filled in all the way, but will just be painted as a fun, relaxed outline of a tree. And then at the bottom of the page, I decided to write the words Merry Christmas, but that is optional, or you could choose a different phrase to use or write in the space who it's to and who it's from. This might be a little bit hard to see, so let me pull out a darker version of this really quickly. Now you can draw something similar to this yourself, or you can hop over to my Etsy shop and print out this outline, and you can simply trace it onto your watercolor paper using a light table or even just a well-lit window in your house, and you're ready to go. I am painting this today in an 8x10 size, so it's easier for you to see, but I am going to have this available in 4x6 and 5x7 sizes as well, if you'd like to make cards out of this instead. And in the Christmas spirit of things, I will also be putting these outlines at a 20% discount for this week as well. All right, enough of that. Let's get to painting. Now, here is another optional step, but this is something I like to do if I don't want my pencil lines to be super visible in the end. I'll just take a kneaded eraser and shape it into a snake or hot dog shape, and then I'll roll it across the page, and that just takes off any loose graphite on there and lightens up the pencil lines a little bit. Make sure to just roll or dab this though. You don't want to actually erase the lines completely. Next, I'll just tape my paper down with some artist tape and then we can get started. Now, I'll pull out some of my Craftamo brushes that I can use for this painting today. We'll get to that in just a minute, but just as a happy announcement, these sets are going to be back in stock in just a month or two, right in time for the Christmas season. So if this is a gift that you'd like to treat yourself with or others with this Christmas season, I will leave a link in the description of the video that you can sign up to be notified with so that you will be the first to know when they are ready. I will also have links and information for any of the other products you see me using today if you're interested. We actually only need 2 brush sizes to use with this piece today, a number 6 round and a number 1 rigger. So to start, let's go ahead and pull out some colors on our tray. We'll start with the filled-in pine tree off to the left side of the page first, and really you can use whatever color you want for this. I'm choosing to paint this in more of a bluish green hue, so I'm just mixing up some Hooker's green with a little bit of ultramarine blue. Just make sure that you mix enough to be able to fill that entire space. You don't want to have to try to remix and match that color halfway through the tree. I'm keeping the color a little bit more on the dark side of the values with not a ton of water in here, just enough so that it is still fluid. All right, good enough. I'll just rinse my brush out a little bit and then take some water from my brush wash bowl and paint and wet down the area within this pine tree. Using the wet on wet technique to paint this tree in helps that paint just spread better and more quickly, which if you're painting several of these cards is a good thing. You'll notice that my water is still a little bit tainted with that green color, but that's okay because we are going to be painting that darker color over the top of it. I actually like having it a little bit tainted for my videos sometimes just so that as a viewer, you can see better where I am placing the water. Now that we have the water base placed in there, we can start adding in the color. The good thing about this part is that there is really not a right or wrong way to do this. We just want the color to spread over the area. I like to start adding in the colors more at the edges or the sharp end of the pine tree branches using the very tip of the brush so I can get a nice pointed look there. And then I let the color sort of blend and bleed into more of the center area. You can help it spread out a little bit with your brush if you need to as well, of course, but as I got going, I actually kind of liked the more natural bleed look. It kind of just created some lighter and darker spots along the center area of the tree that I thought just added a bit of variation and character. So really, I'm just just kind of letting the water and the paint do the work for me here, and I'm just going with the flow. But if you'd rather have the whole tree space as more of a one value look, that's okay too, just whatever you want to do. At this point, just go ahead and continue filling in the remainder of the tree. And as I said earlier, I know this might be a little bit early for painting Christmas, but don't worry, I haven't forgotten about autumn time either. I will be putting out some autumn tutorials in the next couple of weeks as well before we fully dive into Christmas paintings. I just wanted to put out at least one Christmas card idea early in case you're someone who likes to paint things to give out to family and friends at Christmas time. It can take some time to get them all done. And actually, while we are on the topic of Christmas, if you need a few more or different ideas, I do have some really great tutorials from last year that you can try out as well if you're interested. I'll just show some of those ideas in the corner part of the screen so you can get a glimpse of those other ideas. And then I will also post links for them in the description of this video, or you can go to my channel page and find them there. All right, now I have the entire tree covered and painted, and at this point you could just leave it just as it is. I feel like I might want to try adding a tiny bit more texture to my branches though. So I'll freshen up my paint here and add some simple lines of color on some of these branches, maybe more on the lower half, and then I'll fizzle that out towards the top. My tree is still a little bit damp, so hopefully these will blend in just a little bit, but not so much that the lines fully disappear. I truly hope you're enjoying this tutorial so far. If this video has excited you to pick up your paintbrush again, make sure you subscribe so you're always the first to know when I drop a new tutorial. I've got a whole lineup of cozy holiday painting ideas coming your way. I think that turned out pretty good. Those darker strokes of color kind of add a little bit more texture and dimension to the tree. Now, I'll take a bit of that same color and just paint in a little spot on the ground area underneath the tree. All right, I had an idea last minute that I want to try. I didn't do this on my practice piece, so I'm not sure how this is going to go, but sometimes we just have to take the risk for creativity's sake. So after the tree is fully and completely dry, and if I'm in a hurry, then I do use a hairdryer to speed up that drying process sometimes. Then I will use some opaque white watercolor paint, or you could use gouache instead, and put a little bit of that on my tray. I'll mix it with some water to make it more fluid-like, and then I'll load up my brush with some white paint. Maybe I'll even take a scrap piece of paper and cover up this other tree. This is actually one of my practice papers for this painting today. But then I'll just create some white splatters over the top of the green tree by tapping it either on another brush or a pencil or a pen. I thought this might give it sort of a snowy effect on the painting, and because the tree is nice and dark in value, the white really shows up good. It kind of just adds a little bit more of a fun detail to the piece. Sometimes it's the small and simple little details that can really turn a good painting into a great one. In fact, I might even come back in here with the brush and just paint in a few larger, more strategic snowflake splatters as well. All right, that looks pretty good. The last thing that we need to do to finish off this tree is add in the trunk. I'll just use that same blue-green paint for this and paint it up a little ways into the branches of the tree. Okay, we are now officially halfway done with the piece. We just need to paint in the second tree now. I'll go ahead and get some cadmium red out for this one just to give the painting a fun complementary color contrast. But again, you can paint this in whatever color you want. The good part about this tree is that if you used my traceable Etsy outline or created an outline of your own for the tree, all you have to do is paint over the lines. This is not hard to do at all. We're not worrying about the wet on wet technique, painting in quickly before something dries or while something is still wet. We're not doing any texture or gradient values. We are literally just taking some red paint in a small thin brush like this #1 rigger and painting or tracing right over those pencil lines with some color. Even if you have some lines more thin and some lines more thick, that's okay too. In fact, that also will just add some character to this tree. So just sit back and have some fun painting in these whimsical little branches. And as I said, this is not hard to do, but it does take a minute, so I'm going to play some music in the background here that I composed and performed myself, but I do get comments all the time from people saying they hate the music I add, so if you don't like it, feel free to turn the sound off or down, but just sit back and enjoy the painting process. All right, great job. Isn't this so much fun? I'm just going to finish this tree off by also adding in some dots or splashes of color around. This time though, instead of a snowy look, I think I'm just going to go ahead and keep using the red color and make them look more like ornaments or something. I am just painting these dots in with the brush in a more controlled manner this time, but if you'd rather just splatter them on and make the process quicker and more free looking, you can do that too, just whatever. The very last thing I'll add into my piece is writing in the words Merry Christmas. This is just a flexible tip calligraphy pen that I'm using for this to give it more of a fancy feel. But if you'd rather, you can try painting it in or just writing the words with a normal pen or a thin marker too. And that, my friends, is it for this beautiful and fun Christmas tree tutorial. I'm so glad you joined me today. I hope you had some fun and maybe even learned something new. If you did enjoy this tutorial, I hope you'll consider subscribing to my channel so I can continue to help you discover your artistic side.